The earliest stop-motion films were basically experiments in moving objects in front of cameras. Like Bewitched, Matches in 1913 and The Automatic Moving Company in 1912, the former was actually a stop-motion sequence for a live short film. American puppet films lasting 7 to 12 minutes were produced by Connex Studios for home viewing and by George Pal for theatrical distribution. Stop-motion effects creature sequences in live-action fantasy films began with the innovations of Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen. Stop motion has a long history in film. It often used to show objects moving as it were by magic. The first instance of stop motion technique was by Albert E. Smith and J. Stuart Blackton for Vitagraphs. The Humpty Dumpty Circus in 1898, in which a toy circus of acrobats and animals came to life. In 1902, the film Fun in a Bakery Shop used the shop trick technique. French trick film maestro George Méliès used stop-motion animation once to produce a moving title card in one of his short films. Stop-motion is an animation technique that physically manipulates an object that appears to move on its own. The object is moved in small increments between individual photographed frames, creating the illusion of movement. When the series of frames is played as a continuous sequence, dolls with movable joints or clay figures even are often used in stop motion for their ease of repositioning. Stop motion animation uses plasticine. This is called clay animation, or for short, claymation. Not all stop motion requires fingers or models. Stop motion film crews can often use humans, household appliances, and often things for comedic effect. Stop motion using objects is sometimes referred to as object animation. Persistence of vision refers to the optical illusion where multiple images blend into a single image, and we perceive this as a single image. In drawn animation, moving characters are often shot on twos. This means one drawing is shown every 2 frames in film, which typically runs at 24 frames per second. This means that there is only 12 drawings per second, even though the image update is low. However, when a character is required to perform a quick movement, it will usually revert to animating on 1s, as 2s are far too slow to convey the motion that is required. A blend of the two techniques keeps the eye fooled without any unnecessary production cost. Frame rate, also known as frame frequency. This is the frequency when an imaging device displays consecutive images called frames. The term applies to both film and video cameras, computer graphics and motion capture. Frame rate is usually expressed as frames per second or FPS. In most European countries, the standard for FPS is 25 FPS. Due to a majority of television systems and films being the standard 24. American television systems run at a much higher rate of 30 SPS. When using this in animation and motion pictures, 24 FPS was the standard filming format. This would allow the shooting to be shot at a lower frame rate, and this would create fast motion when projected. While shooting at a higher frame rate, the 24 FPS, this would create slow motion when projected. Joseph Plateau was a Belgian physicist. He was the first person to demonstrate the illusion of a moving image. To make this possible, he used counter-rotating discs with repeating drawn images in small increments of motion on one and regularly spaced slits in the other. This device was called the phanetoscope. This device gave the first illusion of a moving image, and it created an image that had an animated effect. The user would then spin the disc and look through the moving slits, and this would create the illusion of animation. This would later lead on to the development of cinema. William Horner was a British mathematician, but he was more recognised as being the inventor of the modern zoetrope. William Horner was well aware of the invention of the phanetoscope disc, but Horner's drum had viewing slits between the pictures. He called it daedalum. This roughly translated into Wheel of the Devil. The daedalum failed to become popular until the 1860s, when a variant of the viewing slit on a level above the pictures. This allowed the use of easily replaceable continuous strips of images. Émile Reynaud was a French inventor responsible for the first projected cartoons. Reynaud created the Panaxoscope in 1877 and the Theatre Optique in December of 1888. He projected the first animated film in public. This was the first known instance of films being used. The Projectoscope was the successor to the Zoetrope. Like the Zoetrope, it used a strip of pictures placed around the inner surface of a spinning cylinder. The Projectoscope improved on the Zoetrope by replacing its very narrow viewing slits with a new inner circle of mirrors. These were placed so that the reflections of the pictures appeared more or less stationary in position when the wheel was turned. Thomas Edison invented the kinetoscope in 1888. It was mainly developed by his employee William Kennedy Laurie Dickson between the years of 1889 and 1892. Dickson and his team at the Edison Labs devised that the kinetograph was an innovative motion picture camera with rapid intermitted or stop-and-go film movement. This was mainly used to photograph films of their in-house experiments. It eventually became commercial use of the kinetoscope presentations. The first public demonstration of the device was held at a convention of the National Federation of Women's Club on May 1891 at the Brooklyn Institute of Arts and Science. This was essential to the birth of the American film culture. The Lumiere brothers, Auguste and Louis Lumiere, were known as the first filmmakers in history. They patented cinematograph, which compared to Edison's kinetoscope. The cinematograph allowed simultaneous viewing by multiple parties. The two brothers worked to create a motion picture camera that was vastly superior to Edison's device that had sharper imaging and better illumination. The cinematograph weighed only 16 pounds. This allowed for the easy movement and transportation. The cinematograph was manually operated by a hand crank as opposed to Edison's electrically powered camera. The major selling point of the cinematograph was that the image could be displayed onto a screen so large that an audience of people could sit and enjoy the production, whereas Edison's kinetoscope could only be viewed by one person at any one time. George Pal was a Hungarian film animator and film producer. He was principally associated with the science fiction genre. He was nominated for many Academy Awards for categories such as Best Short Cartoon. He also received an honorary award in 1944. As an animator, he made the Puppetoons series in the 1940s, which led him being awarded an honorary Oscar. Pal then soon switched to live action films, making The Great Rupert. Willis O'Brien was an American motion picture special effects and stop motion animation pioneer who was also responsible for some of the best known images in cinema history. He is best remembered for his work on The Lost World 1925, King Kong 1933 and Mighty Joe Young 1949, for which he won the Oscar for Best Visual Effects in 1950. His first film that he was commissioned to make was The Dinosaur and the Missing Link, a prehistoric tragedy. This was given a budget of just $5,000. Thomas Edison was impressed by the film, and O'Brien was hired by the Edison Company to animate a series of short films with a prehistoric theme. These included RDF, 10,000 BC, and prehistoric poultry. During this time, he worked on other Edison projects. This all contributed to help him secure his position for work for The Lost World, a film that he is most well known for. For The Lost World, O'Brien sculpted characters out of clay. He would then hire Richard and Marcel Delgado to create a more detailed stop-motion models. Ray Harryhausen was a visual effects creator who is best known for creating a form of stop-motion model animations known as Dynamation. He is best known for his works and animations on films such as Mighty Joe Young, 1949, with his mentor Willis O'Brien, which he won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. His first coloured film was The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad in 1963, and Jason and the Argonauts the same year, which in this feature film, the famous sword fight against 7 skeleton warriors took place, which he's best known for. Before he retired, his last film was Clash of the Titans, 1981. Jan Schwarzmajer is a Czech filmmaker, also an artist. He has labelled himself to be a surrealist due to his animations and features, which have also influenced the work of other artists as Terry Gilliam, the Brothers Kay, and more. He is today celebrated as one of the most celebrated animators in the world. Some of his best known works are films such as Alice, 1988, Faust 1994, and The Conspiracy of Pleasure in 1996. He has been known in many of his films to see them through the perspective of a child, while at the same time the films will often have a truly disturbing and even aggressive nature. Tim Burton loved stop-motion animation from an early age. He was first drawn to films like 20 Million Miles to Earth in 1957 and Jason and the Argonaut 1963, which featured the famous animation technique created by Ray Harryhausen. Burton took these films as a great achievement to the film industry, and he wanted to create his own stop-motion animated films. On Burton's journey to create stop-motion, one of his first attempts was to film Vincent in 1982 using his own technique. This was due to early script notes saying that the puppets they used had a crude elegance, and the articulate movements of the puppet reflected the total exposed feeling of the Vincent Malloy character. In 1993, Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas brought stop-motion animation back to the forefront of filmmaking. Its success proved that the audience would still respond to this age-old medium even in the face of new and wondrous computer-animated films. TV animation. The British television channel E4 uses stop-motion animation in a variant of their channel idents. Their idents seem to have a theme of different types of rooms. The technique being used is stop motion on objects and furniture. For example, the illusion that the curtains close on their own in this given example. In cinema, stop motion animation has become more popular in the cinema with the release of films such as Chicken Run in 2000 and Coraline in 2009. Coraline is a stop motion 3D fantasy film whereby thousands of high quality 3D models ranging from facial expressions to doorknobs were printed off in 3D, resulting in the transformation of computer designed drawings into high quality 3D models that could be used on set. Chicken Run, however, is a stop motion animation which used models created by Aardman Animations. Music videos. A zoetrope was used in the filming of a music video for My Last Serenade by Killswitch Engage, where there is the illusion the band is playing the song in the slits of the zoetrope in the given example here. Computer games. One of the most spectacular use of model animation for a computer game was for the Virgin Interactive Entertainment mythos game Magic and Mayhem in 1998. The game's creatures and characters were constructed by animation expert Alan Criswell using the stop-motion technique used in the films of Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen. The figures that were made of modelling clay and rubber over an armative of wire and ball and socket joints. I think that using this technique is not only clever, but is what makes the computer game so realistic. Also in 1996, computer game The Neverhood, which featured the technique of clay animation.